I hear this all the time. Do we really need a trust? And maybe I could make a case that you don't, but here's what I've learned after this for all my years. Almost nobody who tells me they don't need a trust actually understands what a trust does. They're really saying something else. So today I want to talk about 5 reasons people tell me they don't need a trust and why I think they're asking the wrong question. Hi, I'm Jason Wagner, the farm lawyer. I work with family farmers every single day to help them pass the farm on to the next generation. At my law firm, Wagner Ayler, we've been doing it for over 50 years. And if you've watched this channel for very long, you've probably noticed that I like to talk about trusts a lot. Um, it's not because they're just the cool thing to do and we just sell them. It's because I see what happens when families don't use them or don't understand them. So things that people tell me. They say, I already have a will. Well, that's true. Lots of people have wills. But here's my question. What do you think the will actually does? Because I think people have this idea in their head that when they die, the family gathers around and we have this big will reading. Someone opens the will, we says, here's where this property goes, here's where that property goes, and we're done. But that's not how it works. A will is basically your set of instructions to the probate court. In other words, they're a path to probate. In Minnesota, if you have a will, you're going to probate. It doesn't avoid probate. It gives instructions to the judge to tell us what you want done during that probate. That's a very different thing. Something else I hear, my kids all get along. I hope so. That makes our farm succession plan go so much better when they do. And a lot of the families I work with do get along until somebody dies. Death changes things. You've got grief, you've got spouses, we've got in-laws, money's involved, we've got uncertainty. Weird feelings can come out and express themselves in weird ways. Sometimes you've got a son who maybe he's been farming with you for 20 years and a daughter who lives in Arizona wondering what, mom promised them. And it's not that anyone here is bad or that their motivations are wrong. It's just that everyone's trying to figure out what's going on all at the same time, and nobody has the answers. So here's another thing. We don't have enough assets to have a trust. We're not wealthy. I have to smile a little bit when I hear that from a farmer because most farmers don't think they're wealthy. A lot of times they try to minimize their wealth and not actually show it all to me or, say that it's worth less than it is. But I've been working with farmers for well over a decade, and it doesn't take me long to cut through that and know kind of what your balance sheet should actually say if we're looking at today's fair market values. But farm wealth isn't city wealth, it's farmland and machinery. We're not talking about big bank accounts and big retirement accounts. So, farm succession planning is different than working with any other people. But it's not just about paperwork. It's about the public records. As I said, a will goes to probate. That means that will is going to be in public record. Whatever you wrote down is in public record. That can be accessible by anyone with an internet connection. There's no firewall or privacy involved in that. We also have to think about, well, who's authorized to sign checks and actually transfer this land? Even if the will is crystal clear cut and nobody's arguing about it, says this farm goes to this person, somebody still needs to make that happen. That person's called a personal representative. They have to go to court. They have to say, here's the will. Here's why I should be appointed. Here's the address of everybody else. Please, court, appoint me as the personal representative. Court looks at it, says, okay, all fair and well. We want you to go publish notice now and notify everybody else that you are going to be appointed and get them a copy of this will too. Okay, I've done that. Okay, great. So now, it's been 4 to 6 weeks and we'll finally get our letters that allow us to act. Well, now we got to wait, another 30 days after that to get the deed prepared, get those letters back from the court and actually sign it and transfer it over. So it's not as simple as just distributing a property. Um, this is 6 weeks minimum. Before we're able to do that, oftentimes 6 months. And all of that cost of filing fees, attorney's fees, publication fees, copy fees to get this deed transferred over. Whereas we could have done that through a trust. That trustee does not have to wait for anyone else's approval to start acting as trustee. You already told them they can act as trustee in this document. The trust already owns the land. They step in, they say, yep, I promise I'll be trustee, follow the duties. I understand that I have to do everything according to the instructions in this document. The very next day or the same day, they could sign over the deed, do a trustee's deed to whoever's entitled to the distribution of that, and be done. Not 6 months, not 6 weeks, 6 days, right? Now, practically speaking, I often recommend, we don't do it that quickly because we do want to give everyone in the family an opportunity to kind of know what's going on. I still like to give them a copy of the trust, make sure that nobody has any concerns, or that there's no other trusts out there that might override this that for some reason we don't know about. But the point is, we've saved ourselves the probate costs, the publication fees, the copy fees. Attorney's fees are usually going to be, quite a bit lower than a probate because I'm not spending my time putting together a petition to the court. I'm spending my time actually doing the administration of the estate right away. We shortcut into that. And when you've got a farm or a business, that is really, really important. Oftentimes, we can't wait 6 months for somebody to be able to act. What if we've got grain that's in the bins that we need to sell in order to pay bills? If you're waiting for those letters testamentary to say that a personal representative can act, you might not be able to sell it. You might not be able to get into those bank accounts. Those bills might have to pile up, or you might have to use your own personal funds to pay that and then get paid back from the estate whenever it does open. So that boils down to the biggest misunderstanding. People think that a trust is just a document. It's not a document. I'm not in the document production world. I'm in the farm succession world. And I use this as a tool to allow us to make that farm succession plan work the way we want it to in an efficient way. So the trust is really just an ownership system. And that's why we not only spend so much time designing the trust, but making sure we're funding the trust. We get the real estate into it. We get the equipment into it. We get any grain into it. I want you to get your co-op interests into it. I'm going to give you instructions about how to get your bank accounts in it. We're going to follow up on that, make sure that it's done. We don't want to spend the time to build this plan and then for it to not work. The document isn't the value. The ownership is the value. The funnel of the assets into the trust is where we get the biggest value out of it. The other thing with the trust, Minnesota has an estate tax. That tax kicks in when the value of the estate's $3 million or more. There are very, very, very limited ways for a married couple to take advantage of both of their Minnesota exemptions. Anything you leave to your spouse does not take advantage of that. If you leave everything to your spouse, you've completely wasted it. The only way that you both get to use that is for assets to pass to someone other than your spouse, as in a trust or your kids at the death of the first spouse. And we want that to be at least the exemption amount, which is $3 million, in order for you both to qualify for the full exemptions. So then we can get $6 million of protection. And for married couples where they want to keep everything in the marital estate until they're both gone, the trust is the only way that you're going to be able to do that in Minnesota. So that's another important reason. This isn't, again, just a document. This is a tax planning tool. This is an ownership system. This is the foundation of your farm succession plan. Make sure you get those beneficiary designations updated, though. But we want to make sure, again, ownership follows the trust. Everything funnels into it. Our trust is an empty bucket until we actually put stuff in it. We want to fill up that bucket so that when you die, now we can pull into that bucket and distribute assets out to where they're supposed to go. So we don't start with, hey, what kind of document do you want? We start with, what are your assets? What's the plan look like? Are estate taxes a concern? And how do we move forward in the best, most efficient way to make sure that your goals are accomplished? And more often than not, that leads us into the trust being the right tool because it's so flexible. But again, it allows us to do what we need to do, keep the privacy, keep estate administration efficient, and keep tax efficiency in the forefront. So if you'd like to learn more, check out farmlawyer.com. Follow me on Facebook, subscribe to my YouTube channel, or give us a call at 507 288 5567.